Hey everyone, this is Dr. Drizzle, and welcome to the National Parks Adventure, Crossing America. Today, we're at Grand Teton National Park. A special thank you to the National Park Foundation for allowing us to be here today. And we're here with two fantastic new rangers that I cannot wait for you to meet. We have Ranger Megan and Ranger Julie. We're going to start with Ranger Megan. First of all, I love your backyard.
It's so glad to have you here in the backyard.
This is amazing. Before we get started in talking about this spectacular place, can you tell us a little bit about how you got to the Grand Teton?
Oh, absolutely. I had a former lifetime working for an amusement park and decided to change careers. So I went back to school with the goal of lifelong learning, belly laughs, and helping connect people beyond the cubicle walls. So it's pretty broad, but I happened to stumble on a professor who knew what interpretation was and helped me get started on this path. And once I got some internships at our local state and national parks, I just started cold calling parks all over the West saying, this is who I am, this is what I want to do. And they all told me no. But 6 months later, one called me back and asked if I was still available, and that led to my first national park internship at Grand Canyon National Park.
I love that. And what a lot of perseverance there. You just cold called and asked people. So you weren't afraid to hear no?
No, absolutely not. They can't give you a yes if you don't ask the question.
So interned at Grand Canyon, and then where did you go from there?
I went back to grad school and did a graduate degree in agricultural education. And that led to another internship at Grand Canyon. And I went out thinking that was going to be a 6-month internship, and it turned into 7 years at Grand Canyon. Wow. So I was there doing interpretation and education, helped them start a field school program for youth, doing backcountry service learning, and a little stop at a university in between, and then came up here.
So, Julie, thank you for allowing us to be here also. Same thing, great backyard. I know you guys actually film a lot from the backyard, do some distance learning out here, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to this park.
Yeah, so I started my journey when I was in college. I was studying environmental science and geology, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with it, but what I loved was that with environmental science, you get to know a little bit about everything and how things are connected and how they influence each other, including humans influencing nature. And so I learned about an internship with the National Park Service, where I was working in Glacier National Park in Montana as an interpretation ranger. And at that park, I was able to tell the story of glaciers and the geology and the human impact, and get to share something that I really love, which is science, with people. And that led me to want to continue to work with the national parks. And so I found another job working here in Grand Teton, but during the winter. So being from Texas, that was a really big life change for me. So I really had to lean into being uncomfortable and learning about a new place, and then being able to share what I've learned with youth. I realized that I actually really love teaching kids, love sharing this place with youth, and I realized that's what I wanted to do, was not just teach science, but teach it to kids and do it outside. So I kept looking for jobs, worked here for a couple more seasons, went to Mount Rainier in Washington, Sequoia Kings Canyon. I did a short stint with the Fish and Wildlife Service in San Diego, and then Megan called me up, and I had applied for this job, and she was like, "Do you want to interview? Do you want to come here and work here?" And yeah, I took a chance, and now I'm here full time, getting to do the job that I love.
Well, we're so excited that you're here now, that you've landed at this place, because first of all, we get to meet you, but we're also going to introduce you to thousands of kids around the country.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. Well, I can't wait to get to interact with you all through these projects.
Great. So, Megan, something drew you here. You are our first ranger that has come through as an agricultural major, which I think is very interesting, but it makes a lot of sense. I mean, here we are in this place that's so diverse in the nature around us. But tell us a little bit about the Grand Teton.
Ooh, a little bit about Grand Teton. Well, number one, it's beautiful. And one of the things that's really unique about the mountains here is that they don't have foothills, so it adds drama to the scenery. So these wide open views within the mountain setting are really unusual. So that's definitely one of the things that I like, and that they're so jagged, which makes them that much more dramatic. I think one of the things that's my favorite is that it brings together people from across the planet, across the country, and has for time immemorial. So we have over 25 tribes that consider this place part of their home. And it has been an intersection of cultures because of the corridors and the trade routes. People have been coming together here for millennia, and I find it really special to be in a landscape that speaks so strongly regardless of who you are and what your culture is.
Well, no matter what you like in national parks, you're going to find that here. In fact, before we went on camera, you corrected me because I called this the Grand Tetons, and you said actually it's Grand Teton National Park, but there's a lot of summits back here. So tell us about that.
Yeah, well, the Grand Teton, the one, is directly behind you, that tallest peak that we can see back there. And then the entire range is about 40 miles long. So sometimes you'll hear folks refer to the whole range as the Tetons, but there's only one Grand Teton.
So they all have different names.
Correct.
Now, are these part of the Rockies?
Sometimes you'll hear them referred to as the Northern Rockies, but the geologic systems are a little different. So it's kind of like rounding up to call it the Rockies.
We see some snow at the top of these. So are these glacier formed?
Partially, yeah. So you've got two things happening. You've got the ground pulling apart, and one side of that ground is rising, the other side is sliding back down. And then the canyons within are formed by glaciers.
And do we still have some glaciers up on these mountains?
There are roughly 11 glaciers still in the park, and those are forms that we're actively watching to see the impacts of climate change on those glaciers.
Ranger Julie, let's talk to you a little bit about this place. Now, we talked about geology, and obviously that's evident everywhere, but there is more here than just these big rocks behind us. Tell us a little bit more about what we'll find here.
Yeah, so much. The geology here sets the foundation for habitats to form. Here in the park, we're part of the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem, and we're one of the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem is considered an intact ecosystem where we have every species of animal, plant, etc. that is supposed to be here. So we have some really charismatic megafauna like bears and bison and elk. We also have the tiny ones. Pikas are one of my favorites. River otters, so many birds. The habitats that these animals and plants are found include the alpine, so high up in the mountains. We have the mountain area, so where the alpine meets the tree line, so forested areas. We have the riparian area, so where the rivers move through, and lakes and ponds, and as well as the sagebrush ecosystem, which is, a lot of people don't realize this, but it's a big part of our park. So we have this is a great place to call home if you're wildlife, but also people. As Megan mentioned, we have a lot of human connections to this place, including the indigenous tribes who have been coming here for time immemorial, as well as homesteaders, people who are traveling here for tourism, and now us traveling here to recreate.
So multiple flora, multiple fauna. The geology, like you said, is the cornerstone for all this. It sets this. You have a favorite small animal, a pika, and I love the sound. Meep, meep. I love those sounds. But do you have a favorite charismatic animal here?
Ooh, I do, and you were actually wearing it. I love moose. I've had many personal encounters with moose, but my favorite fun fact about them is that people don't realize, but they're really great swimmers. So they spend a lot of time in wetland, riparian areas where their main foods are found, and a lot of that food is found underwater. So they have to dive in, and they dive in pretty deep to pick up some of the plants that are at the bottom of the water.
So when we travel around in the next couple of days, we're going to be looking for some water areas. That's where we're going to find maybe our favorite.
That's where we're going to find the moose, yeah.
I love that. So talking about animals, they're doing their thing, and they're doing the right thing, right? This is where they live. But I bet we have some issues with animals too, maybe on the human side of it. So what are some things we should be looking out for today? And maybe some tips that I want to take with us as we are looking for these charismatic animals, and the small cute ones too.
Absolutely. Well, Julie said it, this place is so special. It's so wild. It's really unique in the U.S. And so, of course, people are really excited to get to see all these different animals in the wild. We totally understand that. We're excited for their enthusiasm, and in order to keep themselves and the animals safe, you need to do a few things while you're here. So number one, if you're viewing an animal and it notices you, you're too close. So the first thing you can do is just back up out of their space so that they can behave naturally and do what they're there to do, which is probably eat, let's be honest. That's what they spend most of their days doing. People are going to walk away from their backpacks, which usually have sunscreen and food and chapstick and all these things that smell delicious in them. That can be an attractant for bears, and they will come in and they will snack on whatever smells interesting in that backpack. So we ask people, if you're going to step away from your things, lock it in your car, put it in a food locker nearby, or have a friend watch your pack while you go take a dunk in that alpine lake so that the bears don't get used to human food. If they get used to human food, the best scenario is that they get relocated, but the worst scenario is they could have to be euthanized because we don't want them teaching their offspring that kind of behavior. It becomes more dangerous for both the offspring and the human.
And it's not their fault.
Right.
They're just looking for food. Now we're here in September, which means this is kind of a special time for these animals. They're really looking for food right now because what's getting ready to happen?
Absolutely. They're getting ready for hibernation. So they go through a phase called hyperphagia, which is basically eating everything in the cabinet, if you can think of it that way. So they are binge eating right now, trying to put on as much fat as possible. Especially in this area, they are looking for berries this time of year and eating as many berries as they can. So that as you're walking around this weekend, pay attention. And if you see berries, then pay attention to your surroundings even a little more than you would be normally.
So overeating as an adult probably shouldn't go into the hyperphagia state unless we're going to sleep for 6 months, right?
Yeah, it doesn't work out the same for us.
You know, I've noticed that while we're standing here, we've heard some unusual sounds that we don't usually hear in a national park. Tell us about what we're hearing and why it's special to this place.
Oh, interesting. So every national park comes to be in different ways. We are unique in that we have an international airport within the park boundaries, and that is not typical because we aren't here to protect air traffic. That was part of attached to a land donation years ago. So it continues to stay within the national park, and we coordinate with the airport. And one of those things that we have coordinated over the years is that air traffic stays in a certain corridor, and that way, if we're standing here, we're affected. But if we're in the wilderness there, deeper in the mountains, we're not going to hear the air traffic.
Well, Julie, that makes me think about this place is pretty accessible then for many peoples to be able to come and visit, because there is an airport just 40 minutes away from us. How many people actually visit the Grand Teton National Park during the year?
Oh, that is a great question. So in the last couple of years, we've seen our visitation increase. In the last years, we've seen about our visitation go from a couple of million to now we're at about 4 million visitors coming to Grand Teton every year. Something we haven't mentioned is that this park experiences winter for a lot of the year. We have about anywhere from 6 to 8 months of winter, which means that people who are coming here to hike and spend time on the water and experience summer are only here for about 2 to 3 months. So we get a lot of our visitation during those months, and then it kind of trickles out through the other months.
So that is a lot of people here. And Ranger Megan, that makes me think that we're probably concerned about human impact here with so many people, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. We have to think about how sometimes we like to love to death the national parks, right? So how are we dealing with the numbers here at Grand Teton?
Well, the amazing thing about parks like this is that it's such a variety of folks that want to have this experience. So we get everything from people who have been exploring wilderness and going out for a month at a time solo to the person who doesn't even garden out back. And so this is an experience to get people started on this kind of recreation, but that also means there's a big learning curve for folks. And so one of the most important things is just planning ahead. Do you know where you're going to go? If you're going hiking, are you going to end up in the wilderness? For example, there might not be a toilet where you're going. We were talking about bears earlier. Do you have bear spray with you? Because once you're in the wilderness, you don't have a car to go hide in if a bear is on a carcass or out there with its cub feeding. So planning ahead is a huge part of the first step of learning how to be outside and exploring in a place like this.
Well, that leads me to a challenge. So kids, you know that we love to invite you into the national park by helping them solve a problem that they may experience, or just to help them solve a challenge that they're getting ready to go through. So we're going to talk about Colter Bay Visitor Center. We have multiple visitor centers here, right? But Colter Bay is pretty special because it is in line to be renovated or restored in the next little while. And I think our students can help with that. So can you tell us a little bit about Colter Bay, and then we will talk about some challenges that we can have our kids participate in.
Absolutely. So Colter Bay gets its name from being in a little bay off of a very large lake, Jackson Lake. And so it's an incredible place to access the glacial lake right there. It has beautiful trails that go along the lake shore and have a view of the Tetons. There's a campground, hotel, general store. So it's a small community that's there. Huge variety of recreation people can take part in, great wildlife viewing, and it feels like an opportunity where we can host more people. And knowing that visitation has been growing, we want to plan for it to host a lot of people but not feel like a lot of people.
So we want to invite our students to think about how they can be architects and engineers in this. So as we were talking before we got on camera, we're thinking about 3 things that we can have our kids work on: transportation, accessibility, and then storytelling. So tell us a little bit about the visitors that visit this place and how they get to the place.
Yeah, something that is really special about Grand Teton is that there is something for everyone. Whether you're into recreating on the water with boating, or just swimming and splashing around in the water, that's an option. If you're going out to hike, if you want a place to have a picnic or camp with your family, these are all things that people want to do at Colter Bay. So those visitors tend to be the boaters. They tend to be families of all sizes and generations and ages. And we also have, solo or couple travelers who are making their way cross country and trying to hit every national park. And then we have a lot of locals that go up to Colter Bay for day use and camping, and boating. So a wide range of people that are using this space, as well as youth groups and volunteers who spend their time in the campground during the summer. So people, the youth groups and the volunteers will spend the summer helping us as a park. So they're working with us, but we can't always house them in housing, so we offer them a camp spot. So those are people that you'll find at Colter Bay as well.
So we're driving in, we're biking in, we're boating in. So as we are thinking about redesigning and building, we're going to have to think about ways for all of those modes of transportation to get along together. Just like good humans, we've got to figure out how to get our modes of transportation together. And then accessibility. I know that Grand Teton is very intent on making sure that all peoples enjoy this place. So tell us a little bit about what accessibility could look like.
Oh, absolutely. And accessibility can be so many different things, but especially thinking about folks that are bringing multiple generations of family members and things like that. We want all of the family members to be able to have a great experience. And so that could be being able to get down to the water. If you have a mobility device, a wheelchair or something like that. The beaches are all cobble, so not real convenient for a wheelchair. It could be that. It could be understanding the landscape that's in front of them. So if you have visual impairments, understanding the drama of the Teton Range without being able to touch a 3D map could be one of those things. Being able to understand the stories that you were mentioning if you have hearing challenges. And it's not often thought about in an accessibility way, but translating culture. Not everybody experiences and appreciates the same thing about this landscape. And so making it culturally accessible so that people can see their stories here is really important too.
And I know that with the millions of people that come here, you also want to build this idea of a sense of solitude. So maybe students could think of ways to provide areas around Colter Bay Village where you can go for those moments of solitude. You told me earlier that we have a discovery trail here. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think that could spark some interest for kids as they're designing Colter Bay.
Yeah, so at Jenny Lake, we recently renovated the visitor center area there, and a big part of this renovation was creating this discovery trail. And along the trail, there are multiple areas where people can engage with nature. So whether it's a wayside or something that's providing information about what you're seeing. We have some really great tracks along the trail where the kids can follow along maybe a bear's footsteps. And this trail also follows along Jenny Lake. And so Megan, for example, mentioned that, we want people in wheelchairs to be able to access these places. And at Jenny Lake, that trail goes along the lake and provides areas where people with mobility issues can actually access and touch the water. So I think a great way, maybe not so much solitude, because solitude isn't always for everyone, but I would say like providing opportunities for people to engage with these places how they want to, and maybe also like challenge them to experience this place in a way that they might not have thought about.
So kids, we want you to be involved in this revitalization of Colter Bay Village. So you can do anything you want. You can design the parking lots, you can design new waysides, you can design tracks, you can think about accessibility. But I know the Rangers want to know for sure, what would you like to see? Because you are the patrons for now, but you're also the future patrons. You're going to be bringing your families here. So what do you want to see at Colter Bay that will last for a lifetime, and tell all of the stories that are here that may not be heard yet? We're going to tie this to two UN global goals. We're going to do number one is going to be Global Goal 11, which is sustainable cities and communities, thinking about how we're building this community inside of a larger community. We want you to think about global goal number 9, which is industry, infrastructure, and innovation. And if you're okay, I'm going to add another one. We're in a national park, so we better be sustainable in all that we do. So think about ways we can build this using solar power, using water power because we're near water, and maybe even a little bit of wind power. So how can you tie in goal number 7, which is energy sources? We cannot wait for you to share your ideas with us and with the parks. And who knows, in 10 years from now, you may visit Grand Teton and say, wait a minute, I sparked that idea by watching them back in the day, right?
Yep.
That would be exciting.
That'd be amazing.
You could get your picture taken beside it, and that could be your claim to fame. So once you have your ideas, share them with your teacher who's going to reach out to us, and then we're all going to share this on social media. Hashtag Expeditions in Education and hashtag Crossing America. And look at the bottom of the screen because we're also going to add the social media credentials for the Grand Teton National Park because they're going to want to hear it first. I'm excited, guys. This could be like the new challenge for all of what we've been doing with kids for the last couple years, designing a new visitor center with all the things they love. Because as we said, they are the future patrons of this. They're going to be ones taking over. And I know that some of them out there want these hats. They really, really do. So I'm going to ask both of you. We'll start with Megan. If you'll just look in the camera and just give our kids 1 or 2 little things that they could start preparing now to become a ranger in the national parks.
I think the biggest thing, if you're interested in the ranger path, is to stay curious. One of the most important job traits that a lot of us have is that we love learning about new places.
Excellent. And I'm probably reading a lot about that stuff too as you were growing up, right? What about you? What would you say?
Yeah. So the advice I would give if you want to be a park ranger is to find something that you're passionate about, something that you want to learn about, like Megan said, that you're constantly curious about. And I promise you that there is a job with the National Park Service that will help feed that passion. Because we are just one example of rangers, of a ranger job, but we have biologists, we have law enforcement, we have people who do our accounting and budgets. We have really strong leaders like our director of the National Park Service. So there's got to be a job, even if it's obscure like scuba diving. Guess what? We have people who scuba dive for work too. So find your passion and that thing that drives you, and just really lean into it.
I love that. We want them to lean into what they enjoy the most, because we say that when your passion intersects your purpose, then you've found your career for life, right? And we know that we have scuba divers. We have them at Dry Tortugas.
Yes,
and we have agricultural farmers at the Hyde Park where they maintain Roosevelt's gardens. So anything you want to do, they've got it for you. But first of all, you got to stay in school. You got to listen to those teachers, and you have to read and do as many things as you can to make your brain bigger. But first of all, solve this problem for them, because they only have a few years and they're going to need this information pretty quickly. I want to thank everyone for being with us today. I want to thank especially our rangers, Ranger Megan and Ranger Julie. Thanks to the National Park Foundation and to all the people that were able to make this possible so we can share it with you. This is Dr. Drizzle, Ranger Megan, Ranger Julie, and we are out of here.